Hey everyone, this is Yosef Siegel, and welcome back to the back of the base. It's been a while since we last spoke, probably around a month and a half at this point. Hope everyone had a wonderful Purim, a wonderful Pesach, and that everything started up again as normal. So what have Yehuda and I been up to in the meantime? So we are preparing season 2, which will hopefully be out in the next couple weeks. In the meantime, hope you've enjoyed season 1 of Back of the Base. We've had a tremendous response, and we thank everybody who has shown their support. Of course, you can find all our episodes at backofthebase.blogspot.com, as well as on YouTube, our YouTube channel. Just search for Back of the Base. Our episodes from season 1 include a perspective on the written Torah, a perspective on the oral Torah. We did a special pre-Purim episode on Amalek, and of course our first Truth and Whiskey, which was the final episode of season 1. And we have new ideas coming up for season 2, and we hope to get those out to you very soon. In the meantime, enjoy this bridge episode, which was actually originally intended to be something completely different. But when Yehuda and I turned on the recorder, we ended up getting into a really great conversation about someone that's influenced both of our learning and thought processes, Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan. And we decided, instead of continuing to the topic that we had originally planned on discussing, to put this episode up instead as a Truth and Whiskey. So we hope you enjoy. And as always, please email us at backofthebase@gmail.com with ideas and comments and questions. And again, you can find all our episodes on our website and on YouTube. In addition, we are still looking for sponsors for episodes. Please email us if you are interested. All right, without further ado, let's get right into this week's episode.
Is your wife listening to that?
Yeah.
Good.
Ellie's our biggest fan. Ellie's for sure our biggest fan. Like, if it catches on in 6 months, even like a little bit, we have like 100 people that listen to it pretty consistently. So there'll be like a backlog of like, oh, that's interesting, I'll listen to that.
8 years ago, I started my weekly Torah.
Started as just an email though, right?
Yeah, to one person.
Really?
And then it expanded. I still don't know. Besides from my family, I don't know one person who actually reads it. Like, random people have emailed me asking to be put on the list from like different random stuff.
Right.
So like, I know that random people at certain points find it, but no one gets in touch with me.
Right.
My book. I've sold hundreds of copies of my book. Now,
yeah.
It's not like I'm not saying like, I don't know anything.
Was there any way for you to get feedback on the book?
Yeah, I put it in my email address. I have a website.
Did they sell it at Manny's or anything?
Yeah, I sold it at all the places.
How does that work to sell a book at?
Well, just
your
to finish the
publisher help you?
point.
Yeah.
The point is that the idea is content.
Right.
I keep putting out Divrei Torah every single week, even though it could be that if I didn't do it, no one would notice except my parents,
Right.
and my siblings and my grandparents, like my immediate family.
All right, man.
Oh yeah, you tell me. I think that he reads it.
Yeah,
He
he
told
does.
me that he says it over.
Sometimes
Which is
they do.
nice. One day, someone important will pick up my book and actually decide to give a darn about it.
Right.
As opposed to just saying, "Oh, nice," and throwing it on the, the outbox pile. You know what I'm saying? Same thing with this. Content. If you
Right.
produce content, there's no way you can go wrong. Especially since this isn't costing us
Anything.
money.
Time.
It's costing us very precious time, but we enjoy it. So
Right. We enjoyed it anyway.
there's no reason why we shouldn't do it. Content. That's the key. How do you get a book distributed? So my publisher has a distribution. I had a distribution deal with my publisher. They use Feldheim as their distributor. I went to their offices. Really nice people, by the way,
Really?
working for Feldheim.
Who's the biggest publisher? I guess Art Scroll.
Art Scroll's for sure the biggest publisher. I don't know who the second biggest publisher is. Feldheim. So what Feldheim does is that they had a huge distribution system in place, and they only had 8 people working there. There's
So
like
it's
2 secretaries, one lady in the back, Rabbi Feldheim himself in the side office.
Still alive, Rabbi Feldheim?
So yeah, this is actually his son.
Yeah.
But I think it's actually the grandson of the guy who started it, because I've seen Feldheim publishers from like the 40s and 50s. So I'm assuming it's the grandson.
I'm a big Mose Naim.
Okay, what is
I
that?
think that's the publisher name. They were the ones who did all of Rabbi Kaplan's books. Moznaim.
All of Rabbi Kaplan's books are from different publishers.
No, they're all
Every
from,
single
they're
one.
all from Moznaim, and especially all of Mam Lois is from Moznaim.
Oh, okay, fine. So if you look at all his first of all, the anthologies now are owned by OU.
They own the Mam Lois.
The
Oh,
Akira
the-
books,
Right,
like
right.
Tefillin Yerushalayim, Shabbos, Mashiach.
Right.
You know, so the two Aryeh Kaplan
The readers.
anthologies,
Or
not the reader.
anthologies,
The reader
yeah.
is his essays. I think they do that too, though, because it's the same style. But then, if you look at Faces and Facets, Encounters,
Face of Us is not Moznaim, I think.
no, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
Encounters, those are both different publishers. Each one is a different publisher. If you look at the meditation books, each one is a different publisher. I don't know what the deal is, but
I don't know. Be interesting to. I know someone who knew him well. Rabbi Avram Sutton. He actually, if you in the book Inner Space,
okay.
I think it's edited by Avram Sutton,
Mm.
and he lives here in Hellstone.
Oh.
He knew him well. It'd be interesting. I have to do like a bio on him.
I met a guy.
Interesting dude.
Who? Rabbi Kaplan.
Yeah.
Yeah. I met a guy. You must have heard this story at some point. Heard of the Tikva Fund?
Yeah.
So I applied to be a fellowship
Fellow. Yeah. Right.
in one of their summer programs. And
I think Miriam went or something.
Miriam went to the women's one.
Yeah.
Do you know what she said?
Right.
This was the funniest thing ever. At the time, she was like 17.
Yeah, I don't think
She
they
was
knew
really,
that.
no, they had no idea. I mean,
She's such a trip like that.
so she's telling me the story. She shows up, and I didn't even know that she knew that I had applied. It's not like I talked with her about it. I
Right.
talked to Aryeh about it. So she's telling me the story. She went to the men's thing was in the summer, and the women's thing was like in November or something. No. What am I talking about? It was also like in the summer because this was on Sukkot. So Miriam's telling this story. She's sitting at the table with like all these, educators and educated people,
Right.
and so they're going around the table saying, "So why are you here? Why are you here? Why are you here?" And everyone's giving these, very academic responses about improving it. They're like, "All right, Miss Rabinowitz, why are you here?" Well, my brother's friend couldn't get into the men's, and I wanted to prove to him that I could.
Did she say that? They were probably like,
they were not happy.
It was like a 2-day thing, right?
Yeah. Oh no, it was a 1-day thing.
It was
It
a
was,
one-day
like a full
thing.
day, like 8 to 8.
Right.
But basically, like she said that what was she gonna say? But like it was just so funny. I gave her a standing up for that one. That was great.
The balls.
That was really great.
Just, why are you?
Oh, that was really funny. It was really funny. Yeah. Why? So the guy in charge of it is Rabbi Yitzchak. Forgetting his name. He lives in LA. So basically, part of your thing, you had to write an essay on a rabbi you admire from the 20th century, or not a rabbi.
Did you do Aryeh?
I did Aryeh Kaplan.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Nice.
because for 2 reasons. First of all, I really wanted to do it because I felt at the time he was really influencing my style of thought,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, no one else is going to do this.
No, he's so obscure.
I figured, was the most an influential person from the 20th century. That's what it said, and it might have said Jewish figure. I think it said
Okay.
influential Jewish. So I had 3 options in mind.
Elie Wiesel's probably like 17 of them.
No, because they were very yeshivish guys. I had 3 people. It
Yeah.
was Aryeh Kaplan, Ramon Holenberg, and Chavetz Chaim. Those were my 3 options.
Can't get much bigger than the Chavetz Chaim.
I'm saying, like,
century.
Yeah, like influential figures. The whole modern style of halacha is based off of the Chavetz Chaim, and the entire Lashon Hara campaign. Literally, there's a tzedakah called the Chavetz Chaim Heritage Foundation,
Yeah.
and it's
big.
huge. It's huge.
Schools. How many schools are
Right.
called Chavetz Chaims?
Built based off of that. So like I was like, so those 3. So I was like, to me personally, it's Aryeh Kaplan, like that I could right now. Because how much do I know about the Chavetz Chaims? Like, I never learned the hashkafa of the Chavetz Chaim. I never went through a Shmiras Halashon. I'm sure you could learn plenty about his own hashkafa.
It's in my bag.
Nice.
He reads like a halacha sefer.
It is halacha sefer.
Yeah, I know.
There's
I'm
so
saying
much
he reads like a halacha sefer.
stuff in there.
But I have a friend, Usher Bistritz. So basically, he's like, he has a lot of obscure svarim that the Chafetz Chaim wrote.
Okay.
And in those, you get a real flavor for who he was.
Mm-hmm.
Abbas Chesed is a little bit more out there, but he has some obscure one. But either way, so what did you do? How did you do research?
I mean, I just read his book and did the regular research. So this whole story. So basically you had first you send in your application. If you get past that, they do a video interview over Skype. So I'm meeting with this Rabbi Yitzhak, I forget his last name, from Los Angeles, and he says to me, "Oh, do you know your essay caught my eye?" I was like, "Score." And he's like, "Because you wrote about Aryeh Kaplan."
Oh, nice.
And he says, "I happen to be a Talmud of Aryeh Kaplan."
Oh, sweet.
So I said, "Oh, that's amazing. Can I, when the interview's over, can I ask you some questions about him?"
Yeah.
Whatever. So the one question I asked him was...
Just one? You got one question?
Yeah. It was the end. He wasn't, he was down. At the beginning, he was talking about, he was just saying his connections and whatever, but he had a job to do. Like, it wasn't so that question, he didn't say, "Okay, you have one question." Like I said, if I can ask you a question, because I feel like, what am I going to do? Ask him, the one question I had in mind was, if he was living nowadays, not how would his works translate nowadays. If he was living nowadays, what would he do?
Okay.
Did you hear the difference?
Yeah, but what do you mean, what would he do? Would he still be publishing?
Would he be a writer? Would he be a speaker? Would he be a different hashkafa? Like, what would he be doing? Because he was, in the 70s, you could do different things than you can do nowadays. Right?
Yeah.
There's a lot more flexibility, not in terms of, people putting other people in cherem, but just in terms of, because there were fewer options, more categories fit into those options. Like the way I like to describe it with shidduchim, for example, because you talk to people who got married in the 50s, and they're all like, "I don't understand why young people have to ask so many questions before they go on a date with somebody." Mm-hmm. It's like my grandparents, when they got married, so they were both from, and they went out, for a little while. They didn't necessarily do a shidduch thing, but they went out. They were looking for somebody, who was Shomer Shabbos and Shomer Kashrus and wanted that for the future. That's what they were looking for, right? My parents were looking for what type of job do you want to do? So my father's like, "I'm going to do, fundraising for tzedakahs," and my mother's like, "Well, I'm a teacher."
Your father was always
the Jewish stuff.
No, I know, but I'm saying that's what he wanted to do when
he got a business degree, and his first job out of yeshiva was fundraising for a school in Atlanta. Cool. Which is where I was born.
Right, I knew that.
And nowadays, it's, okay, learning or working. No hats. This yeshiva or that yeshiva.
Tablecloth.
Starting off in Eretz Yisrael or not starting off in Eretz Yisrael. Right. Forget any of the really silly stuff. Right. So, but the main stuff, are you starting off in Eretz Yisrael? When my parents got married, that was a couple people did that. Right. Now it's if you don't do it, it's because you're already in the middle of something.
Wait, so what did he say? What was his answer?
Honestly, I don't remember. Not because he didn't think about it, but I guess it just didn't
strike you.
Didn't strike me. It was important to me, when he said it, because I really wanted to know the answer, and I believed his answer. It wasn't I was like, "Okay, that's just bogus," but it obviously didn't strike me enough to stay with me. But something along the lines of that, he probably would not have written as much.
Because he would have talked more?
Right, he would have had to talk more. And been more... It's amazing how many people, through that and through somebody else that actually, one of my publishers, he had an influence on so many youth programs that are still active today in some form or other. Whether they're offshoots of the original things or whatever. He had a hand in so many things. And I don't know what the deal is with his family, because he has 8 kids or something like that.
Yeah, he's 8 kids.
So I don't know what their deal is. If they're just normal people, so that's why you don't hear about them, or if they don't really no, because I want to email one of them or call one of them.
Probably
just be I just want to sit down and hear about your father, because he's a lost person in history right now, or he's about to be lost.
He's a legend.
It's unbelievable. The guy is crazy. I'm shocked that we got through. This might even end up being a truth and whiskey. I'm shocked. I'm so shocked that we've gone through a month of recording podcasts and we have not mentioned Aryeh Kaplan once.
I have, without mentioning his name, like countless times.
But I'm saying, like, the fact that he had such an influence on both of us,
Right.
totally separately, and like, we did.
There's this strange, like, underground sort of like underground. It's like an undertone, like stigma with that surrounds his name. I think because when he was alive, he totally marched to his own drummer.
But was that
he
okay back
randomly-
then? I think that was okay back then.
I think he was out of it. Like,
I mean,
I think he was such a gun, like that he didn't.
well,
He didn't need anyone's approval.
no, but one thing about it is that he definitely was a lot more open with information than other people have been. Like when I was working in yeshiva,
I don't think purposefully. I think he didn't.
that's how he gave it over.
Yeah, I think sort of he just, from my understanding of his reading and whatnot, from reading him, it's like if he saw a connection and he thought it to be true, then he just spoke it out or wrote it out. You know what I'm saying? I don't think he was trying to do anything other than.
Well, one of my rebbeim said that he
Just-
definitely has chidushim. I mean, and I've seen this too. Like I've seen him explain certain things and been like, that's not pshat. Or he'll translate, because he translates everything that he quotes. He'll translate something and I'll be like, I've never seen that translation before. You know? Now, a lot of his works are based off of him saying, like, okay, I've done this amount of research and this amount of understanding, and that's why I translate something like this. And that's cool. Like,
Right, in
that's-
Living Torah, that's he at the bottom.
Literally.
he
Living
writes-
Torah, literally, he translated the Bible. And that was the first translation, I think, like the first major translation.
into English.
Yeah. Like besides for the, the
King
King
George's
James,
or King James.
the standard, meaning the standard, thee, thou, thy,
Yeah, but he writes at the bottom the exact translation based on Rashi or Sforno or Ibn Ezra or whoever it is. But I think what he was doing was like in the conglomerate of the things that he knew, he was translating it. He wasn't translating it so much as he was like, I think he was basically unclusing it.
That makes sense.
Not nearly on Unclus's level. We have to know Unclus was extremely Kabbalistic in his.
Yeah.
But I think he was basically unclusing it. It wasn't a translation. It was a
Yeah, it was an explanation.
It was an explanation, a reiteration, sort of explanation of the text without any.
Yeah. Ugh, I should have looked in his books for our discussion tonight.
What for bitachon and
He has some. He has an essay on it in Faces, I think. There's an essay on it.
In Faces and Facets.
Yeah, I think so. There's also a lot of mistakes, by the way,
What?
in the publishing. The publishing of his books was obviously not done very professionally.
It could be because he wrote so much, published so often.
It could be, but like, there's really bad mistakes.
Spelling mistakes.
Spelling mistakes, just simple. Like, I think the inside cover of Faces and Facets says Paces and Passets. Literally.
I'm sure they fixed that.
Now the F and the P are not. I mean,
Near each other
about
on
the
the keyboard?
yeah, exactly. They're on opposite sides of the keyboard. Actually, like, I don't know how that happened, but the way I used to explain it to guys in yeshiva, a lot of guys were obviously into Rav Noach. Rav Noach is amazing. Noach is unbelievable.
Never got into him.
Oh man, he's incredible. He's mamish incredible.
Yeshiva even DEC.
Yeah, and what I used to tell the guys is like, okay, like when you finish with Noach, move on to Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan, because it's like he's not dealing with the basics anymore. He's dealing with the basics of the advanced. Like
Rabbi Aryeh.
Rabbi Aryeh. Like you read his books on whatever, and it's so simple. It's so simple. Like, it's simple enough, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way. I'll explain what I mean. It's simple enough that a guy can read it. Meaning somebody with no backgrounds in Jewish education, can just say like, oh, okay, I understand these concepts now. Now, I think that's part of the problem. I think that's part of the stigma. Because some of the stuff, like he translated Sefer Yetzirah.
He didn't, though. If you read his preface, he specifically said he didn't translate.
But why is he putting it out? And why? Why is he doing it? Why is he putting it out there?
So that's partly why I was saying earlier. I don't think he thought about those things. It wasn't a conscious thing. It was just something that he was like, this is interesting. I've gone through it. I have it like systemized in my head. I'm gonna write it out.
It's weird, man.
And then like
it's weird.
people wanted to publish it.
So you're saying he was too smart? Like he was absent-minded in terms of that?
Yeah, I think he was absent-minded a little bit in terms of things like that.
I don't know. I never. The
Also,
only conversation I've ever seen with him is that interview on YouTube.
Right, that's the thing. But he came from outside the fold, right? At like 13,
he was always traditional.
11 or 12.
He wasn't like totally. He knew he was Jewish. He knew.
Yeah, he knew he was Jewish.
He knew stuff. He wasn't educated, but he knew stuff.
Right, then he just sort of like exploded. Like in a matter of 12 years, he went from like knowing Aleph Beis to getting Smicha in the mirror.
While becoming one of the top physicists in the world.
I think he really started the physics after he got Smicha. He got Smicha very young. He did.
And he died at 48.
Yeah.
He died at 48. He'd still be alive probably nowadays. He died in 81, I think. Right? So that's a little under 40 years. So he'd be an old man, but he'd be around. Yeah, I can't imagine.
He'd probably still be like focusing on physics and things like that as well.
The interesting thing about it also, and maybe you can know more about this, is that at the end of his life, he discovered his Hasidic roots at a certain point. He said he had Eastern roots at a certain point. Like he was like half Sephardi, half Hasidic in different writings and
Greek,
stuff like that.
I think.
That's what it was?
Greek, yeah.
And there's something like at the end of his life, he sort of turned against the Hasidic part of it. You ever heard this? There's something, like there's like a line in his bio or something like that, how near the end of his life, something happened. Now, near the end of his life, he died suddenly again at 48.
Right.
So like,
he was in the middle.
He wasn't He wasn't planning on like, he's 95 or 119 years old, can I know her?
Right.
And sitting there going like, okay, now and I only have 6 months left. I have to explain it. Like, I don't think he thought he was gonna die. So who knows what happens in the next years afterwards.
I have heard though that the Hasidus he got into based on learning. I don't think he had any shaykhs to Hasidus.
I remember reading that. Yeah.
But also, I think at one point the Rebbe had told him like his tafkid is to translate.
Oh, really?
I think that's when he really like just busted out as many mamlois as he could.
Did all these 48, dude. It's insane. He wrote so many books.
I've heard from Rav Sutton that there's still writings of his that are not published.
There must. I mean,
like notes and back of notebooks and things like that.
I don't know if they're gonna do anything with it or not.
Not unless somebody pushes them, probably.
Well, who has it? His family has it?
I don't know. I gotta ask Rav Sutton who has it. Rav Sutton personally has notes from him.
He's buried here on Harzeisen.
Yeah.
I really want to go.
I would have gone already by now if it wasn't on Harzeisen.
He's actually close to a friend of ours, Hertz. I'll edit that out.
Oh, really?
I looked it up, and it's like where we were for the Levaya. Oh, you didn't come to the basic forest.
I didn't go to basic forest.
So basically,
why did they pick Harzeisen for
Aaron? His whole story. Baruch Khan told me the story. Basically, his father has a couple plots there.
Oh, really?
Because his father's parents I think got divorced. So each parent took like some of the plots, and then his mother, something about his mother, meaning Aaron's grandmother, got remarried and she had a bunch of kids. So there's like a whole discussion about the plot. So they were trying to trade or whatever. Basically, Sof, Aaron's father gave Aaron his plot.
Whoa!
So he's buried in his father's plot next to his grandfather or grandmother. I don't remember which one it is. I found this all out afterwards. So basically, if you go to that spot where we were, this guy has this great website, finding Tzadikim's Kvarim on Harzeisen, yeah.
There's a lot, probably.
Yeah, I'm sure. So he like has pictures of the different streets you turn down, and like at a certain point I was like, oh, I was just there last week, 2 weeks ago, however long it was after I...
They say on his bio where he's buried.
Yeah, but you have to find it. Like,
right, yeah.
So he has pictures of how to do it. So it's basically like you go like a little further down, and then you have to stop and you walk up some steps, and he's there.
Yeah. I've tried to find like some of his kids.
They're nowhere on the internet
No, they're not.
because their names are on Wikipedia.
Right. The
So
names
everybody
are
was like, "Oh, okay, I'll just Google the names. They must be doing something." you know?
right.
And they're not that old. My father was a counselor to one of them.
Right.
He died. Rabbi Aryeh died in the summer, I think.
Yeah, he did.
So the kid was in camp, and he left. So my father's in his early 50s, so he must be in his 40s.
Right, something like that.
So like it's not like they're not old people, like we could still find them, we could still talk to them, and they're nowhere on the internet.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's I don't know, it's just a weird situation. I think most of the stigma though is just people just not knowing what to do with it. Just not knowing what to do with the information.
Yeah, the Kabbalah went out. He went way out there, but
But the simple stuff, I am very heavily influenced by how he writes.
not only that, but like, why would he pick Mam Lois? He writes a little bit why he picked to translate Mam Lois.
Yeah.
Because Mam Lois itself is kind of an obscure sefer.
Okay.
I mean, you'll find it in Hebrew. You'll find it in basically every shul
Right.
somewhere, with dust
Yeah.
on it. But it's not the type of sefer where you're like, you hear quoted in speeches ever. I don't think I've ever heard Mam Lois quoted in a speech. I don't think I've ever
Not in yeshiva,
seen
but I've heard
somebody
it. I've heard
reading.
it.
I don't think I've ever seen someone reading Mam Lois.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Even the English one? Well, by now, because of the art scroll revolution, now they're on the bottom of the shelves,
Right.
And also, when you have a set that's that big,
It's
you
huge.
just ignore it, Like, it's
How am I
like
ever
the
gonna
shots.
do
It's like the shots that stays on your
Right.
shelf, Oh, man.
For me personally, though, the Mam Lois is it's gold.
So why did he pick it? What did he say?
I think because his point was to basically Rabbi Yaakov Cooley writes in his preface to Mam Lois why he wrote Mam Lois.
Okay.
And I think Rabbi Aryeh sort of felt like the same thing was needed in his time.
Okay.
So he basically just tried to he felt like it was a reinvigoration of the original purpose of the book.
Uh-huh.
The purpose, according to Yaakov Cooley, wrote it, and he writes there that there was pushback on him writing it, which is interesting also because there was some sort of stigma against him writing that book.
Okay. Just to be clear what it is, it's a collection of different midrashim.
Yeah, woven in what you
Into the
could
story
sometimes
form.
call story form.
Right. Meaning it's not like he just
Yeah, he's not
made
making
it
anything up.
Right.
No. Although Rav Yaakov himself has there's a lot of his own shatim.
Okay.
Drushim, or...
There's drush on the medrash.
Yeah. Or it's drush on the pasuk. But I'm saying, obviously, Rav Yaakov Cooley quoted also in the back. It wasn't Rabbi Aryeh who did that. I mean, he translated all of them into English.
Right.
But he writes there basically that there's a gap in the language, Yaakov Cooley writes. There's a gap in people understanding Lashon HaKodesh and Aramaic. At that time, they spoke Ladino in Spain.
Mm-hmm.
This was in the 1760s,
Okay.
1740s maybe.
Okay.
And so he's like, people are losing the ability to learn Gemara and therefore learn Halacha. So he's like, I'm gonna write this to be interesting, so you can read it to your kids when they go to sleep. He literally writes that.
Uh-huh.
But at the same time, I want you, if you pick up this book, I want you to be Mekayim, basically learning Gemara, Mishnah, Gemara, and specifically Halacha. Like, if you get into the middle of Mam Lois, which Rabbi Yaakov didn't even get to write,
Okay.
but it's primarily Halacha.
Rabbi Yaakov didn't get to write?
No, he died, after
So who finished
Tetzaveh.
it?
Trinopoli, maybe, wrote Yosef Chaim Trinopoli.
So someone else finished it.
Someone else wrote into Devarim, I think, and then he also was Nefter.
Uh-huh.
And then Rav Shmuel Yerushalmi.
Interesting.
Shmuel Yerushalmi.
Can you tell the difference between the styles?
I can, yeah.
Because
I read it a lot. But Rav Yaakov's, in my opinion, Rav Yaakov's was the most succinct, the most...
So it became more halachic.
Well, that was his intention. Rav Yaakov's original intention in taking up the project was to write in Ladino, which he did. He wrote the whole thing in Ladino, and so that people could learn halacha.
So who
in
translated?
sort of like a backdoor kind of a way.
Who translated it into Hebrew?
Shmuel Yerushalmi translated all of it into Hebrew, and I think then finished it in Hebrew. So I think Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan's thing was that, like, there's a gap in language. These kids don't know how to read Hebrew.
Right.
Because he was heavily with the NCSY people and the...
right. At a time where NCSY was starting.
Was just starting, and right, there was like already a wave of, in the 70s, of Baalei Tshuva. Like, it's a chab. No one knows how to read. Which is a
I mean, I think the 60s and 70s was the beginning of the
right. That was like right. So I think that's why he picked that man. I was like, okay, this needs to be translated into English.
Fascinating.
Because that's originally why it was put into Ladino. But also, he didn't finish it either, Rabbi Kaplan.
Oh, okay.
He died in the middle.
Who finished it?
Tzvi Fair, Faire, I think.
Sounds right.
Fair. He finished it, yeah. And one or two other people, I think, helped out in some of the other ones. And those also, you can tell, are not the same.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting why he picked that.
Yeah.
Because that was his major work. Translating Mayim Lois was his brainchild for a long time.
That's the one which everyone has.
Right.
You know what's funny? The Mayim Lois, the way you're describing it, it sounds like, you know, the set, the Medrash Says, and then they made the Little Medrash Says.
Yeah.
You must remember that from when you were a kid.
Yeah, Medrash Says.
That's exactly what it sounds like.
That was the point of it?
I don't know if that was the point of it, but if you read the Medrash Says, not the Little Medrash Says, that's really made for kids, and while it's good, it doesn't have that much information in it.
I mean, that much factual midrashic information.
No, I don't think there's that many midrashim. I only remember reading as a kid, so I don't remember how much of it is real and not real. But
right.
But if you look at the Medrash Says, each book is like 4 inches thick. Like it's like really big.
I can't remember that.
And
like,
it's really good. You could read that book and give over Parsha Shir to kids.
Yeah.
And to adults too, I'm sure, in certain situations. But meaning like it's very easy and it gives you all the, you know, because especially the funny thing is that in the summer when you're in camp and you're trying to teach kids in learning groups, so it's the worst parashas.
Yeah. Because
especially here in Israel, where in the Haredi world where we only have camp after Tisha B'Av.
Right.
So you're teaching, you know, Shoftim. Like it's not happening. You know, like it's really like that. You can't. So if you have a book with all the midrashim in it, the midrashim are always going to have good stuff in it.
Right.
You know, so that's easy to do. You know, Bamidbar has a lot of stories, so you don't need to. Once you get to Matos Maseh, the end of Bamidbar, and then you're going to Varim Vaschaiga, there's like the stories are all in the medrash.
Right.
You're not really in the psukim that much. So
I mean, that touches on a whole thing of how to understand midrashim. Both Mayim Lois and Medrash Says, obviously.
Right, but
how to understand midrash. The point that
without getting into that controversy, though,
right.
that discussion, the idea is that it's there to be learned, you know, and especially when you're giving it over to an audience that just needs to know what the parsha is, you know, like forget mitzvahs and stuff like that. Just teach me what the parsha says.
Right.
You know, I don't think I learned Sefer Devarim until I was in high school because
there's no reason to.
I'm saying like
because it's not in school.
We didn't do it in school or in camp.
Right.
Because in camp it's boring. And in school, you do Bereishis Shmos before, you know, and by that time the boys are learning, you know, Mishnayos and Gemara, so you're not doing Chumash anymore.
Right. Actually, just speaking about, we also mentioned in the Amalek one about words.
Yeah.
A little bit about words and whatnot. And now we're bringing it up again in a slightly different way in terms of being lost in translation, essentially.
Right.
Which is what Yaakov tried to fix to some degree. I think it's very important, though, to understand that his interest was so that Jews should know halacha. That's why he added all the medrash and the stories. He didn't really care very much. I shouldn't say he didn't care, but I'm saying that wasn't his point to write a storybook that he could read to kids.
Right. I mean, there is a storybook for kids. Tzanorena.
What is that?
It's a book that they made. I think it was made in Europe. For women, that women should read it on Shabbos and know what the parsha is.
Read it to kids, or are you
for themselves? For themselves. No, because I'm not. This is before the.
Listen to this.
We should be so lucky. What's it called? Before the Beis Yaakov system started, and all girls' education was done in the home, right? So whatever you got to, you got to. Whenever you didn't, they didn't know. That's how simple it was. So I think it was called Sena or Ena. I think that's what it was called. Basically, it was just a book, and it included the Medrash and included the Chazals and like all these things. It's just like, so you know what's going on, and it's
fascinating.
dare I say, fun. You know.
Right. But yeah, I mean, the main point for that was the halacha.
Interesting.
And but yeah, I had an idea once that, like, imagine you had like a, I don't know, like, I guess like some sort of an application or something like that, like an app, right? Where as you're there's like the pasuk, right? Let's say like half the screen is the pasuk, and then like let's say 3 of the words in the pasuk are like the shoresh is like in a box, like a red box or something, right?
Okay.
So, and then at the bottom, there's like 4 choices of how to translate the word based on like 4 different English translations of the word, but all relevant and useful translation. And then you have to pick which one suits the pasuk best. So and then like you start to learn as you go through the different psukim, like what the words actually mean, like deeper than their context.
So integrating the Mefarshim into the actual psukim.
Right. And then having it like in app form so people can learn how to read.
Oh, you're saying like that.
So you click on it in the bottom, like, okay, in this context, I think it means more closely to this.
Like
then you start to see, then you start to see like even different, slightly variant meanings in the psukim themselves, because you're also seeing the other options of what this word could actually mean.
Right.
It's not that 4 of them are wrong and one of them is right. They're all right.
So you're becoming which one's at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. Just which one's more applicable to this context.
Case. But to let you know that it also has different meanings, which the Mefarshim take very seriously. If there's a word that can mean 3 different things at once, just because it means this here, the other translations don't fall by the wayside. On different levels, you can integrate them into the pasuk.
Correct.
That's a very common method of explaining the Torah.
Wouldn't that be a dope app for kids?
No kids like learning language. That's not fun.
All right, so we'll put other things where you can pick up candy.
You can pick up candy.
I don't know.
And crush it.
Yeah.
That sounds like a good game.
Slice.
Crushing candy.
Ninja slice. What's that game?
Ninja slicing?
Ninja.
It's called
Fruit Ninja?
Fruit Ninja.
Yeah,
Fruit Ninja. By the way, that's a full half-hour Truth and Whiskey right there.
Right here, recorded.
What we've done already.
I'm not drunk. You might be close to me.
We're the day after. We're the day after. So, the biggest theme that I've seen in Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan is his idea of trying to, how do you put this? Of trying to take his concept of being able to of taking classical Judaism and explaining it. Meaning there's so many, and especially in this concept of meditation and hisbodedus is what we call it today. You know, we call it hisbodedus, we call it kavana, right? But you know, like, what did that mean 1,000 years ago? You know, because this is before.
That's super interesting.
I'm saying because this is before Rav Nachman, right? Which is who I guess is the father of the hisbodedus movement nowadays. Maybe not directly, but through his influence.
Yeah, he definitely picked up the torch
and
ran with it.
So let's. I mean, I'm sure there's other things, but
onto the top of a bus.
Exactly.
He ran it into a bus.
And in many different ways. But, you know, like, he talks about how, hold on a second, like, this was the Hasidim, the famous Gemara, the Hasidim Rishonim, you know, that they would show in Shah Achas Lefnei Tefillah Achar Tefillah, right? That they would wait an hour before and after Tefillah. So it wasn't like they would wait an hour. It was this idea of getting to this mindset. And we're definitely going to do an episode on meditation in general. This is just the idea of what I feel can be gained from Rabbi Aryeh, right? And that's this idea that it made it accessible to me, somebody who is not a chassid.
Wait,
right?
you've said that you've used some of his meditative practices
I have.
that he writes about.
I have. I
And
definitely have.
what's your take? Because I have not, actually, surprisingly.
Well, I don't
Truth
know
of the matter is, by the way,
yeah.
just to not that it matters so much, but I haven't really. I've read through his meditation works, but
Okay.
I haven't really.
Okay.
It's not my personally. It's not my main focus on his works.
Well, I'll tell you the idea for me, and this is just again keeping it to the overall topic because I don't want to get into the specifics right now because
Right.
that'd be a different episode, and I don't want to, want to save content.
Save content. It's an endless amount of content.
Right, exactly. Is just the idea of davening, and what davening is. And you're talking to somebody who was a physicist. Like physicist is what do I see in the universe?
Right.
And he's tapping into this immensely Kabbalistic, concepts. And when I say Kabbalistic, I shouldn't say Kabbalistic.
Physics.
I should say esoteric. Something which is just
Metaphysical.
Metaphysical. There we go. Something which is just not in this. It's a totally just. You can't quantify it. There's no quantifiable aspect to it, and it's totally changed, like how I view davening and trying to discover davening. And you really see within halacha, you see the progress that went from Nivua to Tefillah. And I'm getting off topic. This is not what I want to talk about at all. But I'm just saying, like, this type of stuff. So Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan comes in and he writes 4 books about it. And this is a real Jewish concept. And
he was known
it's pretty
to
much
use
gone
the-
in the mainstream world nowadays.
Well, any form of meditation.
Yeah.
Yeah, except for old school Chabad is very meditative.
Uh-huh.
New school Chabad is not.
Okay.
I'm not even sure that. This sounds very like. I don't know what the word for that is. Pompous in a way, but like, yeah, old school Chabad was very meditative. They would sit for like they would sit for hours on one piece of Tanya, let's say.
Yeah.
And just quiet, silent. That was like sort of the difference between Chabad and Breslov. Breslov was not a silent sort of meditation at all. It's very like practical sort of meditation.
Okay.
What you might call like just like awareness. Whereas Chabad was like more of an old school, like silent, like picturing phrases in your mind's eye with your eyes closed.
Yeah.
And just like sort of staring at them.
So that's what
just flow into your
that's
head.
what Rabbi Aryeh talks about.
Right. That's more of Aryeh's style.
That's what he talks about.
Which is the right.
Yeah,
more classical
so it was just
meditation.
so he has so much. There's so much room for influence even nowadays, and that's like not what we're doing anymore.
I don't know if nowadays we have the attention span for it.
Yeah, so I read 2 of his stuff.
Meditation in the Bible. Did you
I read
read?
Meditation and the
The
Bible.
blue one. The blue cover.
No, it was like a guy. There's Meditation in the Bible. There's Meditation in Kabbalah.
Right, and then there's Jewish meditation.
Right.
Jewish
And there's
meditation.
practical. Is that practical Jewish meditation? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
So I read Jewish meditation and I read meditation in the Bible.
One interesting thing before, because I want to know what you thought about them, but the practical one, the small one,
Yeah.
with like the different doors
Yeah.
on the cover,
Yeah.
that was it was not intended for Jews. Little known fact when he wrote that book.
I could see that.
It wasn't intended for Jews. It was more of like a sort of, you could call it like an academic research sort of book on meditation itself, just to try and bring Jewish meditation back into the fold of the other meditations.
So how much? Yeah, keep going.
Because like if you've watched the interview, you know that he makes mention there of that obviously Judaism. Israel is from the East, and really
Right.
Avram himself, who picked up many.
Was an Eastern religion.
Right. I mean, it's not. What are we in Asia Minor technically?
I guess so.
Israel's in Asia Minor, but it's east of.
It's not. It's not. Yeah, I mean, it's not Chinese meditation,
or Japanese, right?
but or that far. It's not Far Eastern style, but it's an Eastern style. I mean, it's a lot more contemplative than inner focused than Western religions.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry. So you've read both of those books.
Yeah, no. So I just want to ask you, because of that point, how much do you know how much he wrote with that style? Like, how many things was he writing saying that this is not necessarily for a Jew to read, even if I'm giving it to Jews? It's not necessarily a quote unquote Jewish book. Meaning all the ideas are Torah ideas, everything about it is translated according to the Torah. There's no mention of or credence given to any other form of thought or religion.
So I think, as far as I know, it's just that one, and Faces and Facets was which he didn't compile that. It wasn't. It was sort of compiled in his honor.
Oh, that was after he died.
Yeah.
Okay.
But Faces and Facets
or Paces and Passets.
Or Paces and
According to my book.
and the Practical Jewish Meditation. Mm-hmm. As far as I know, those are the only two that he wrote. He wrote a couple essays on, like, he wrote one that I know for sure on the age of the universe, which he had a very unique take on.
Uh-huh.
Then that was also, I mean, there's a lot of science in that one, so it's like...
Well, makes sense.
Gerald Schroeder, I think, I don't even know if he knows that he's taking this view, but he takes a pretty similar approach.
That's interesting, because that's old physics. I mean,
Yeah.
Aryeh died in 1981.
Well, the physics he was talking...
We're literally decades ahead of...
yeah, but the physics... In the physics world, there's not a ton new between now and then.
Oh,
we know how to use things.
Plenty of new thoughts and hypotheticals and
the facts though haven't really been updated. Not that they need to be updated. If they're true, they're true.
I don't know enough about it to comment
on the physics aspect.
Yeah, I mean, I know the string theory is dead. That's not very much.
Well, string theory has never been proven. It's not a thing.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, they officially abandoned it.
Yeah, well, yeah, some have, some haven't. But yeah, string theory is sort of done for now. But I'm saying in terms of quantum mechanics, so our understanding of it maybe is a little bit more clear. We have more like data on more observable data and whatnot. But I'm saying the math has been there since Einstein, which was way before.
Right.
And in terms of cosmology, maybe we know about more planets and things like that, but general relativity still dictates most of what we know about Big Bang Theory and everything past that. 13.6 billion?
No idea.
Can I just say something about science right now?
Sure. Truth and whiskey.
No, is that it? I think a lot. People who know me would know that I think a lot about the science aspects and things like that. I think a lot about science, and it sounds like a cop out, and to me, even like sometimes when I think about it, it feels like a cop out. But the truth is that, you know, like the age old like adage, like the scientists are going to climb their way to the top of a unified theory, and the
theologians will
the theologians are going to be like, "Oh, welcome to the party."
Yeah,
and
sitting there waiting for them.
It's sort of like that. It's sort of like that. My take on it is like, come back to me at the end. Like, we've purported to have something which is true, which is eternally true, right? The Torah.
Right.
It was always true and always will be true, right? On multiple levels of analysis.
Right.
Like, by definition, the scientific method is to ask more, ask again, which is great. It's fantastic. But by definition, there's no, okay, so it's true now. They could be proven untrue in the future, like Q, come back to me at the end when you've figured out that there's no further exploration. Nothing further can be explored.
No, but isn't theology the same way? Theology is still being explored.
No.
Different avenues.
I don't think so.
Maybe not from the major ideas, but there's always... Look, first of all, what are you talking about? In Judaism, we come up with different... We're doing this podcast. This is a new avenue, potentially, in theology. It's not something new.
That's not what I mean at all. I'm saying is that, like... What did I read recently? I read recently that our understanding of dark energy has changed drastically in the past, like, 2 years.
Okay.
Just because we have new information, right? No one was purposely trying to, deceive or, delude anybody. We have new information. We have better instruments for collecting data. So, like, why would anybody put their faith, so to speak, in air quotes, in science if it's constantly changing? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's nothing that says that something can't be disproven in the future. So to me, it's just kind of like when people have questions on like science to Judaism, I just say like, just wait.
Well, I guess it's also, and this is kind of what we wanted to talk about, but I guess it's also part of the idea of being able to rely on something concrete right now. I mean, even though it's technically not concrete because we'll disprove it tomorrow, right? But as opposed to aspects of theology which could never, ever be 100% proven, right? They could be logically proven, but practically it's almost impossible, right? As opposed to science where practically it's proven right now, even though it might change next week, but at least it's something that I can point to, you know? It's something concrete, something physical.
Uh-huh.
The math makes sense. I mean,
so because you can see it, it's better in a certain sense. Not better, but it's more reliable in a certain sense.
Right. I mean, even though I know it's going to... Meaning it's a very poor way to live your life practically if I had to keep changing my belief system. When I say beliefs, I mean in how the universe works, not in God or not. You know?
Right.
You know, like, but in terms of concrete evidence, it makes the most sense. I mean, like, for example, I'm not connecting the two things. I'm just telling a mushal that, you know, if a guy goes to court and he's proven guilty, right? So now he's guilty. And if he appeals the sentence and he's found to be innocent, so now he's innocent. You know, like, so over the past...
But he was always innocent. That's like, you know what I'm saying?
But how do I live my life, though? I have to live my life right now in the sense that he is guilty, and then later on, once it's turned around, I have to live my life that, okay, he's innocent.
It's a sketchy way to live your life.
Yes, it is. 100%. But it's very scary to live your life with the understanding that I'm relying on something which is never, ever going to be proven. 100%.
Correct. Yeah, I hear that. The thing is that it's like, at some point, in any sort of like, discussion of like these type of topics, you're gonna have to rely on some sort of intuition. Right.
Are you talking science or theology?
Both. For instance, scientists...
Well, theology, obviously. So what do you mean by science?
By science also, when you're talking about... I don't know, I guess, do you? You do really. Or you, at least, like, you're an idiot if you don't. For instance, like free will, right?
Okay. I mean, that's not scientific.
It's very scientific.
Oh, okay, fine. No, you're right.
I mean, they can watch your brain waves, your brain function as you're making decisions.
Right, in that sense, yeah.
You can make it scientific. You can try anyway, right? And to certain levels, it actually is scientific. There are detectable levels of free will that even I think Jews would say you don't really have. Bechira doesn't extend to Coke or Pepsi.
I mean, that's not the significant aspect of it. That's not what we're...
It doesn't. I don't think it does.
So, well,
It's not...
It could be a choice, but that's not a significant aspect of it. Meaning an animal can also choose can learn the difference between good food and better food. You know? Like a dog knows which food it likes better.
Right.
So that's the same as Coke or Pepsi. Like, I like Coke better than Pepsi, even though they look
Right, and
the same and taste the same.
those you can make a very strong case that those type of choices are
Okay. Right, I think we touched on this.
Yeah, we've touched on this.
At some point.
Predestined and from different stimuli. But at some point, let's say when you're dealing with free will, you're gonna have to come to the point of like, I don't know where I'm trying to go with this exactly, other than someone was once someone once asked a question to Sam Harris, saying like, I firmly don't believe in free will. Like I've read all your books and I subscribe to those type of ideas. There is no free will. But she's like, I have like a 6-year-old son, I think she said, or like 7-year-old son. Like, how do I raise the son so that he comes out responsible?
Right. Like you have to teach them to.
Right, you have to teach them to make good choices.
Right,
which
you
is a
just
weird
tell
thing
them.
to say. Every choice you're ever gonna make is predestined.
That's a really, really good question.
Not only that, but it came from a woman who, has a young child that she's trying to raise in the best way possible, who firmly believes there is no free will.
Right. So what did he say?
So he basically said, like, he didn't say quite you have to lie to him, but basically he was like, you don't lay out full truths in front of children all the time. You don't tell them that.
That's a very...
It's a very smart answer.
It's a very smart answer. That's why he's Jewish.
That's why he's Jewish.
I mean, that's how you see he's Jewish.
It's a very smart answer,
I mean,
but
it's just, like you can't.
What all the thinking people though, like, who giggled at that for a second though, and I think what we all thought though was like, there's a level of intuition which you can't get around. You're alive, and you have free will.
Yeah.
Why in the world did we get there?
Because we were talking about how science is sometimes...
it's just constantly changing.
Yeah. Someone asked me this in Shul a couple of days ago, and I didn't have a chance to discuss it with him, but he was coming to me and saying there's no such thing as free will. Because...
Shul deep dive.
Yeah.
We all go home after happening. Where you tend to hang out.
So I'll tell you, I said a Vart over Purim. We're taping this Motzei Shabbos after Purim, even though you're probably hearing this a few weeks afterwards. I said a Vart after Purim about the Gemara in Megillah on Tes Zayin Beis, and I'm going to say the Gemara, but I love this story so much. Haman is given instructions by Achashverosh to come get Mordechai to take him in the parade.
Right.
So Haman goes to the Beis Medrash because that's where Mordechai is. So Haman comes into the Beis Medrash and Mordechai's in the middle of davening. He's not ready to come yet. So what does Haman do? He does what every guy who's trying to kill all the Jews and hates Judaism and everything with it would do. He asks the kids where they're holding. No, kids, what are you learning today? That's what the Gemara says. So someone said to me, it could be how Chazal is expressing the idea. I said, I don't care if it's how Chazal is expressing the idea. I don't care if it's how it actually happened. That is an amazing story.
Yeah.
Haman.
He had the wherewithal.
Haman walks in the no, where are you holding?
What are you learning?
Not good enough. It's unbelievable. The idea that I took out of it is that's how much covet you have to have for learning Torah. That somebody like Haman, who is trying to get rid of the Jews, will sit there and be like, so what are we learning today?
Right.
That's how much he recognized. He didn't kill the Jews, as we discussed in our Amalek episode. He didn't kill the Jews because Torah wasn't true. That's not why they tried to kill the Jews.
Right.
So anyway, that's what I took out of that Chazal.
That's nice.
That's the idea of, and someone said to me, maybe I said, whether it happened, whether it didn't happen, that's the lesson. Right. And it's an awesome story. When you say it like that, see, this is how you teach an Medrash. First made a coffee.
He for sure first made a coffee in the back.
With 2 plastic cups.
2 plastic cups. A dinky spoon.
Alright, where's Mordechai? Alright, where are we holding, guys? Where are we holding? Oh, covered over. Oh, gewaldig
He
cigarette.
bummed a cigarette from some guy outside.
Oh, that's what type of yeshiva it was?
Yeah.
Oh, very. No wonder he wanted to kill the Jews.
He had to deny giving a couple shekels to some heads. Hey, Heyman, you got any money?
Say, like, where do they... I mean, like, I know Haman was the prime minister, but where in the world do you just walk into the Beis Medrash? Like, I mean, like, it's not that... Maybe they weren't as glamorous as we had nowadays, but there's still a door and 4 walls, you know, and a roof. You know? Like, who's just like, oh, Haman's coming... Haman just walks into the Beis Medrash. Where are we holding, kids? You book? You know, like, you shut him out, you hide. Like, I don't know, like...
They didn't care.
What is the deal?
Hey,
Alright, so they didn't care. They believe it, and then they're like, Haman, so where are we holding?
Yeah.
Where are we holding? You're gonna kill these people in a few months. You know, like what?
They had to know.
What in the world?
They say that he was using that as a tell, right? As like a what are they called?
Well, the famous thing that the rabbis tell us is whatever the kids are learning
Has
can be
significance.
ruach. Right? They have ruach. It could have for you, for other people, it could have ruach hakodesh purposes. That if you're like in the middle of a problem, you're trying to understand like what to do with it. You ask a kid what he learned that day, and if you're holy enough, the kid will tell you and will be an answer to your problem.
Or if you're Haman enough.
So Haman comes in. You're getting me saying Haman now. Haman comes in, and he says, "All right, where are you holding? What's going on?"
I have a friend who dressed up as Haggai for perm.
How does that look like?
Haggai? He was the pimp, dude. He was the star of all the
Oh,
Nashim.
that guy.
The dude was a straight pimp. He shared a chalice. He had a purple
because
helmet.
there's Haggai and there's Haggai, so.
Right. There's Haggai and Shashgaz. Shashgaz was the
Should we
seed
say
of
Hamelach? So what my point was, getting back to us. Oh, so this guy comes to me. Unless you had something to add to that story.
No.
So this guy, and he says to me, you know that you don't have free will because at the end of the day, there are decisions that you make that you will not understand. So
why does that mean?
I was like,
free will?
So that's what he said, and I didn't have time to discuss it. The only thing I said to him, I said, that's completely ridiculous. There's so many things you do in the world that you don't understand. That doesn't mean it's not a decision that you made. You know, like you're always gonna. Like he said, if you keep asking yourself, why did I do this and why did I do this and why did I do this, even though you can trace it back, oh, I did this because of this and this and this and this and this, eventually you get to a place where you don't know. And that's because it wasn't your decision. So no, it's just because you're doing it on it. You're not instinct. You're doing it because you decided, like, it could be, like, we can get into that discussion, but it's not proof. I could just as easily say that, you know, like, I made this decision because this is just what I'm feeling right now and I don't know what to do, so I'm picking one, right? As to saying that it was out of my hands. You know, so that was my response, but I don't know if you have a...
Yeah, it's kind of a weird way to prove to try and prove to yourself there's no free will, because you can't figure out why you've done anything. But the whole the part of the free will thing to me is kind of strange, because like I literally, to me, from the fact that a human being can do something drastically dumb. No, I'm serious. Like, that's proof that there has to be free. What are you gonna, like? Let's say I could right now make the decision. I'm well capable of making the decision right now to jump off the roof.
Right.
I could totally do that right now. That would be so out of line with my life. You know what I'm saying? Like,
well,
it would just.
At least where it is currently.
It'd be such an oddball decision, and nothing is stopping me from doing it.
Yeah.
So, how are you gonna fit that into like, oh well, it was exactly timed, basically, that like with all the forces of nature bearing down on you personally, and all of your previous stimuli has led to that you're gonna jump off of a roof. How in the heck does that make any sense?
Yep.
But again, though, I think, I don't know why we're getting into this now, but I personally feel like there's a lot of room inside classical Jewish thought and writings and teachings to say that, like, Bechira, what we refer to as Bechira, which we translate as free will, is a pretty narrow thing. There's a lot of things happening outside of that are you don't necessarily have free will. The world itself has a destiny. Has a destination.
I don't like.
And Hashem will lead to that destination one way or another.
See, for me, I guess I look at it as that ultimately, when it comes down to it, even though there are so many decisions that, similar to what you said earlier, since there are so many decisions that could be made on instinct, but if it came down to it and you were pressed into a situation and you make the choice, it is your choice, then to me, it shows that all the other choices were your choice as well. Now, whether or not you decided to rely on your natural instincts or your past history to make those choices is it doesn't matter. Because ultimately, since the choice was in your hands, just because you decided to pass it over to instinct doesn't mean that it wasn't still your choice. That's why, even though you're right, like we talked about the Coke or Pepsi, that an animal can decide to have the better food, right? So if the animal can make the decision, and we know that animals don't have free will, they just have instinct, so then forget it. You know, like, so I'm saying, so that's not me. So what I mean if I forget it is, so that's not the important aspect of free will when we discuss what God gave us, right? But to me, it's no. Once I have the ultimate choice, once my ultimate decision choice is made by me, then all of my decisions, even Coke or Pepsi, are ultimately mine to make, whether or not I decide to make them. Which means that everything is really free will. Now, there's outside factors which are beyond your control. That's obviously not free will. You can't decide whether it's going to rain or not. You know, that's not up to you, right? But every decision that you make, even the instinctual ones, since they're within your realm of choice, then they do fall into the category of free will.
That's interesting. Makes sense to me. I don't want it to, but it does. Has that ever happened to you before?
True. Oh yeah, like I gotta argue with you, but you're just making too much sense, man.
Yeah, I think that's the sign of an intellectually honest person. You have that feeling of like, I don't want to believe that. It just fits.
But not even just, because it goes against what I'm saying. Just because, like, I want to keep the argument. You know, like you want to keep
the
argument going. Truth.
Right. No, but it's just good too. I've been really into the we might need to wrap it up here. I feel bad. Your editing job is not going to be easy on this episode.
No, it's actually going to be pretty easy. You got the Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan section and this section, and I'll call it Truth and Whiskey. I'll put a. So I took some notes.
What book is that, by the way?
This? You never saw Das Torah?
No, it's gigantic.
Shout out to Das Torah. Das Torah. This man, Rabbi Daniel Ivinson.
Mm-hmm.
So he took tons of topics and he brought tons of sources for it.
This book looks like right up my alley.
It's a reference book. If you're going to use it to learn from, you must look up the original sources.
Why? Because the context is a big deal?
Yes. And also, you want to make sure you have, Baruch Hashem, you have enough of an education that you can translate from the original Hebrew.
Right.
And you want to have your own translation. You don't want to just rely on someone else's. But
why did he do this? Does anyone know?
He writes in the introduction, he wanted to make a source book for Hashkafa, for Jewish ideology. And, yeah. And basically...
Oh, one thing I did not get to say, though, that I wanted to say on things that I don't know why the Jewish handbook, the handbooks of Jewish thought are not standard school material.
He actually says in his intro, I just read it tonight.
Really?
He says in his intro that he used Handbook of Jewish Thought to discuss some of the topics. He doesn't necessarily quote it
from handbook.
From
the original.
From other places, but he used it to compile.
He writes that straight.
Yeah,
up?
That's right. Here, the following databases were utilized. A number of English translations useful in my translation. Here. The following databases were utilized, and among them is Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan's Handbook of Jewish Thought, and then English translations were useful in my aids in my translation of Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan's Living Torah, among other.
Oh, nice. So this guy's
he gets around.
Well influenced. Who knew? Well, that's what we were talking about.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, major plug. So basically, I hadn't really prepared that much before Shabbos on the topic, so Shabbos afternoon and tonight, when I was waiting for you to get here, I was looking up stuff. So basically, my emunah bitachon thing is that I have one major klal, and then like the other major points that I got out of it is just, like logical proofs versus instinctive. A little of what we touched on tonight. The difference between emunah and bitachon, and how to fulfill the mitzvah, which gets back to intellectual proofs versus instinctive. The need to not throw away intellectual proofs. Like, intellectual proofs are very important, but at the same time, if all you have is intellectual proofs, that's not real emunah. Because if you only believe in something because you can touch it, like we talked about, if you can only believe in something because you can touch it, then you don't really believe in it. Because if a tree falls in the forest and no one's there, does it make noise? The answer is yes. That's the answer. So
it makes noise, but doesn't necessarily make a sound.
There we go. But the answer is yes. Even if you're not there, it still exists. So that's why you need to have instinctive proofs as well. But my major nekuda by emunah and bitachon is that, as much as a religion we're so makbid on saying that we don't take leaps of faith, there always remains a leap of faith.
Yeah, there has to.
And what that means practically is that, for example, is that someone could show me how many times have you told a story to somebody, and the person's like, I don't believe it. And you get another person, and 15 people are standing there telling the exact same story, whatever, from different and the guy's like, I just can't believe it. I just can't believe it. That's the leap of faith. The leap of faith is saying that, okay, this totally makes sense that this happened. It could be I even saw it. It could be I even saw it. But at the end of the day, you still have to choose whether or not to believe it. Things could be staring you right in the face and they make sense and you still ignore it. I mean, how many people are there nowadays, and always were, who knew all this stuff and yet did not practice the Torah? Because as much as they believed it and they knew that it was true, they just couldn't accept it.
Yeah,
that's the leap of faith. Because that is a leap. It is a big deal. It's not easy to be religious. It's not easy to just sit. I mean, especially if you're a thinking person. If you're not thinking, you can do anything. But if you're thinking, it's not easy to just decide, okay, this is all true and stuff like that. Oh, it's logical. But yeah, but it's a huge commitment. It's a social commitment, a cultural commitment, way beyond. It's a relationship commitment.
It's a monetary commitment.
I mean, I'm just saying fancy words. It's a life commitment. Your whole life is determined by this. So that's the direction. That's the main point.
Cool.
All right, should we sign off?
Let's sign off for this week.
Oh, well, this episode did not go anywhere
as
what we intended. It ends up, we're going to make this a Truth and Whiskey episode.
Minus the whiskey again.
Minus whiskey again, but we didn't even need it this time.
I personally, I needed it.
Oh, well, I'm sorry. So next time, third time's the charm for Truth and Whiskey. Next time we're gonna have to do a whiskey. We need a whiskey sponsor. If you Back of the Base is looking for sponsorships, one way is if you want your own personal whiskey to sponsor. I don't know if any of our listeners make whiskey, or if you just want to sponsor our whiskey for Truth and Whiskey, we're more than happy to help you.
One bottle of whiskey would last us at least 5, 6, 7 episodes.
Sure.
Yeah.
And if you want, so that's 5, 6, 7 episodes. We'll do l'chvod someone, Leil or Nishma, somebody, just whatever it is that you want to do. But in general, please help us keep this podcast going and send us a note at our email address.
We will get this on podcast.
We're gonna make it happen. We're gonna make it happen. Right now, it's available on the blog backofthebase.blogspot.com. Beis is spelled B-E-I-S. It's also available on our YouTube page. Just search for Back of the Base on YouTube.
Like the videos and subscribe.
And hit the little bell so you get notifications as to when we're publishing.
Yes.
We usually go up sometime on Wednesday. That's what we're looking at. That's how we've been doing it so far. Every Wednesday we have a new episode up.
Subscribe. We need subscribers.
Please email us, backofthebase@gmail.com. Again, base is spelled B-E-I-S. We want to hear from you.
If you see a post on Facebook, share it on your...
Tell your friends.
Yeah, we need... Just share it.
We've gotten some really good feedback so far, by the way. A few people have come over to me, this is legit. A few people have come over to me and told me how much
they enjoyed it.
Liked it, and they weren't even necessarily related to us. So...
Oh, yeah.
And you can find us on Facebook, Yosef Siegel and Yehuda Rabinowitz, and I am also on Twitter, at Kumzitzguy, KUMZITZGUY. Stay tuned for more episodes and updates. They come every week.
Let us know if you want us to talk about a certain topic.
Yeah, we would love to have new ideas. If there's something that we covered which we didn't cover enough, something totally new, something totally off base. Another truth and whiskey idea, if you have. Again, like these are just. This was not supposed to be truth and whiskey. It ended up being that way just because we started talking about Rabbi Aryeh and somebody that's very influential in both of our lives. So we never met, by the way.
Never met him.
And
there's only like 2 pictures of him online.
Yeah. His kids are listening. We'd love to get in touch with you. We really would like to know more about
your dad.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask him something about it.
Go for it. Go for it. Anyway, all right. Thank you, prophets.
Much love.
And we'll see you next time on the back of the Beis.